Just give it an okay. Got it okay. And you're good to go.
Welcome. Well, welcome everybody on a amazingly snowy Friday. Wasn't expecting what we're seeing here in the West office. Not sure where you're sitting at home right now, but it is a blizzard outside, and we're being told it's going to last all day. So if you are going out and about today, please be safe. It looks like we're going to have quite the storm today. So today is our last class graduation for all of you for the last 5 weeks. So thanks to each and every one of you that have stayed with the program. And for those of you that have actually been watching the program online on our, what do we call it again? The portal, right?
Yeah.
The Royal Page portal. So thank you for those of you rewatching the sessions. Maybe I went too fast or something I said, you really want to revisit it. So we're getting views on the portal, which is kind of cool. I've enjoyed teaching the class, as I always say in my classes with the folks that take the class. I wish you nothing but success. My happiness is derived from seeing you guys reach that success and that pinnacle of where you want to go. It is your business that you're building on your own, but you're not on your own because we're here to support you. So I'm always available. Just because this session's over as of today doesn't mean you can't reach out to me by email, by phone. I'm happy to talk to you about anything. Right now, I'm knee deep in the AREA machinations with the new regulations that start on April 1st. So I think it's actually quite comical that April 1st, April Fool's Day, is the new launch of TRESA. Phase 2, phase 3, where, as I've discovered yesterday, AREA may not be as prepared as they should be in regards to all the forms that are being amended as a result of the changes. So I have been actively this week working on trying to get some more information for us as a brokerage. We'll be providing that to you because come April 1st, there are significant changes. I'll touch upon it. There's a couple of spots in our course today where I'll bring it out as far as what you can expect, in 3 weeks' time, essentially. But ultimately, about 90 odd forms in the database or library of AREA forms are being altered and will be changed. And so one of the things that we need to communicate and convey to all of you as realtors, come April 1st, be very vigilant about using forms. So don't rely upon what you may have stored on your computer or what even may be in our office folders. Although our people here in the West have been advised, I've talked to Chris Lytton last night about it for the Don Mills. The forms have to be the current updated forms starting April 1st. RICO was advised, AREA, there will be zero tolerance on April 1st if you're not using the current correct forms. So just for how many we got on the call right now? 5 or 6 or 7?
9.
We got 9. So you guys are the first 9 out of the 1,500 realtors that are hearing this in signature, because we haven't even conveyed that to the rest of the population, because I only found out about it yesterday afternoon. So we will be communicating through various channels to you so that you're ready. And we're hoping to have a webinar or one of those Zoom calls on Signature Live before April 1st. The challenge is, of course, we've now discovered we're AREA is unprepared, and we have March break in the middle of everything. And Matt's reminded me we're losing an hour this weekend too. So for those of you that forgot, like me, clocks move forward, so it changes the time for all of us. So anyways, we'll get into the class today. It is our last one. Again, thanks for sticking with it. We're talking about negotiation strategies. What I'll say about negotiations for all of you, including myself, it is a lifelong journey of learning about how to negotiate. I'm not going to stand here and profess to be an expert negotiator. I'm learning all the time. All I need to do is look at my kids and see how good they are. When they want something, they out-negotiate me all the time. I seem to not have any wins with them. So we're always learning about negotiations. I'm going to give you a couple of techniques today. I shared with you one of them by word. It was called the reduce the ridiculous. Matt's going to help me with the math on that, so that'll be kind of neat. And the other one I talked about before was the casino close. So we'll give you a kind of quick kind of casino close scenario, what that looks like. And I'm going to do some of the regulatory elements of negotiation. So it's kind of the part of the course where it keeps you on track, and particularly because we're changing the act in 3 weeks' time. What I'll cover in this section is not written down. You'll have to write it down, but it'll be the most current information that any realtor in Ontario is going to have out of 96,000 of you that are trading in Ontario. So we'll start with the first slide that I have. I don't believe, oh yeah, it's in red. This is one of my all-time favorite quotes. John F. Kennedy, former president of the United States. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. And so JFK was always amazing. Him and his speechwriters for coming up with these, I would call them double entendre statements or quotes. This one originated out of the Cuban Missile Crisis. If anybody's familiar with that, that was in the 1962, 63-ish, I believe. And the world was as close as it ever has been to a potential nuclear exchange between the United States and Russia. And so John F. Kennedy set up this XCOM group to prevent a World War III from occurring. And this was one of the quotes that came out of that session. It was 13 days. There's actually a movie called 13 Days, but 13 days the world sat on its edge. I was not alive. I was not born for another 8 years, but 13 days the world sat on the precipice of potential nuclear catastrophe. And John F. Kennedy managed this in a stoic manner, in a manner that he didn't panic, and he didn't launch any missiles. It was just an amazing, I guess, experience of negotiations at the very highest level, because the consequences in that negotiation versus what we do, if we fail in our negotiation, a buyer hasn't purchased, a seller hasn't sold. His negotiation with Nikita Khrushchev, who was the premier president of Russia, that could have ended the world as we know it. So I love this quote, and I always kind of throw this out as well. You notice how the name of Kennedy and my last name are very similar. The Kennedy family are Irish. My family ancestry on my dad's side is Irish. And going back, 7 or 8 generations in Ireland, our family is actually related to the Kennedy family, but actually on the Fitzgerald side. So John F. Kennedy's family's mother's side were related and from the same place of Ireland. So I always kind of get a kick out of telling people that. I don't get any royalties for saying that. I don't get any benefits. I don't get any invites down to Martha's Vineyard, nothing like that. And I had a great uncle that was actually the mayor of Chicago when John F. Kennedy was the president of the United States. So our family immigrated, my dad's side, to Canada in the 1850s, 1860s, and it's kind of split. Some went to the States and the rest of us stayed in Canada. So anyways, I love that quote. And really, if you think about it, I've watched our industry go from fearing to negotiate. People are terrified to go face to face and meet another realtor. And this quote says, don't be afraid of that, right? Don't be afraid of what could happen. You might make a mistake, sure. Could you be embarrassed? Sure. But you'll learn from those mistakes. So never negotiate a fear. So that's going there, oh, I'm terrified that Matt's gonna, outdo me and make me look embarrassed. Because if you go and do the face-to-face, I'm telling you, the vast majority of times you're going to secure some type of positive outcome. But we're always afraid to do that negotiation face-to-face. Everybody sends it by email or DocuSign and things like that. So great quote. Next is the traits of a good negotiator. The first one is emotionally stoic. You cannot have a negotiator that flips out. Can you imagine if there was a hostage situation and I'm the police officer or the FBI agent that's coming in, and Matt's got his AK-47 and he's got his dynamite, and he's held up a bank. And if I came in and if I'm freaking out and I'm the negotiator for the FBI, that's probably not going to be a good thing for Matt. Matt's going to probably have he's probably going to push the button, as Matt just did there, right? So you want to stay emotionally calm and stoic. And I put this in brackets. Few Good Men is a movie. It's a movie probably 20 plus years ago now, maybe 25 years ago. It's Aaron Sorkin was the author of that. He's the guy that did the West Wing series, which is phenomenal. But there's Tom Cruise, Demi Moore's in it, Jack Nicholson's in it, the guy from Footloose, what's his name? Kevin Bacon's in it. If you like burgers, you go to, what's the burger place again? The Works. The Works. There's the Kevin Bacon burger. Lots of bacon if you like bacon. If you don't try that one. It'll clot your arteries. Anyways, in this movie, there's an amazing scene, two scenes. The preceding scene is Tom Cruise is sitting down with Demi Moore and the other lawyer, I always forget his name, and he's telling them how they're to act in the courtroom. So if you remember the movie, or if you ever seen what courtrooms look like, there's a plaintiff's table, a defendant's table, and so they're sitting there as counsel. And so he's telling Demi Moore and the other character, if there's something that is said that is so damaging to our client's position, just sit there, remain stoic, don't like it. This doesn't bother us whatsoever, because if we react to it, what happens is the jury sees that and goes, aha, they're really worried about that. And maybe, they think in their mind there's some guilt being associated there. So be very calm. Well, a few minutes later in the movie, they're in the courtroom. There's an expert witness testifying. He's a doctor. He's been certified as an expert witness in the courtroom. And Demi Moore doesn't like this expert witness's testimony. So she stands up very aggressively and says, I object. And the judge says, objection noted, overruled, meaning sit down, right? Like there's nothing, object. She doesn't sit down. She goes, Your Honor, I strenuously object. And he says, I've noted that, sit down. Your Honor, I've moved to do this. Your Honor, I moved to. And so the judge gets upset and says to Demi Moore, listen, he's an expert witness. Sit down. We're moving on. While that's happening, the jury is sitting there going, what's going on here? And so Demi Moore did not remain emotionally stoic. And they had a come to senses moment after the courtroom cleared, and Tom Cruise says, listen, we just gotta not let this affect us. You can't do this anymore. They gotta sit there no matter what's said. It's like water off our shoulders. So that's the kind of thing you need to remember when you're negotiating, because some other realtor, believe it or not, there's some bad ones out there, right? There's some people that maybe are winding you up. They may say something to trigger you and get you off of your game. Don't let that happen. And if you've never seen this movie, highly, highly recommend it. It is well written and phenomenal. And when you do watch it, or if you rewatch it again and that scene comes up, remember what I said about that. Situational awareness, big picture, small picture, or 360. I like to look at things from the 40,000 foot level. That's the airplane looking down, because then you see everything. As opposed to being on the ground, you're very narrow-minded is what you can see. There's a great experiment that I took one time in university about this big picture 360. And the experiment went like this. It was a group of us in our first year of university, we're the guinea pigs. And they had us watching a video. And in this video, it was on a baseball diamond. And the instructions we were given was to follow and watch the infield, what they were doing. So the infield would be a back catcher, a pitcher, first base, second base, shortstop, and third. Focusing on them and see what they're doing, right? First base throws over, or shortstop throws to first base throws to third, whatever they're doing. Follow that down and make notes of what you've observed. No problem. So the whole class does that. The whole experimental group does that. Well, after the videos are played, the feedback and follow-up was, okay, great. How many passes were made and throws were made? And so pretty much everybody had the right numbers. And then the question was, and did everybody notice what color the elephant's thing was that people sit on? We're all thinking, what color was the seat on top of the elephant or something like that? Nobody saw that, because we weren't instructed to look for that. We were told to zoom in to what this infield was doing. And so then the professor, the experimenter, replayed the video with us now being able to look and open up our perspective. And sure enough, believe it or not, there's a big elephant walking through the outfield. And it was there, but nobody saw it. So it's important to, if you're so dialed into something, is to try and step back. You may not be able to do that yourself. So if you're not able to do that self, you've got friends that you've met here in the brokerage. See if you can reach out to them to see if they can help pull you back and give you a wider perspective of 360. Because if you're sitting in a very narrow 45-degree perspective, there's things you're not going to catch. Make sense? I thought that was a brilliant experiment. I think they may have versions of that online on YouTube and whatnot. Find allies and common ground. This is very important. When you sit down in the negotiation, you got to be within the first couple of minutes figuring out who's on your side and who's against you. Very, very important. Number 4, gets out of the way and lets things unfold. This is so difficult for our business and for us as realtors. We have a little bit of this thing called ego sometimes. And, you know, one of the reasons why consumers hire us, in every study I've ever read about realtors of why consumers pick realtors, being a great negotiator is always in the top 3. Moves around first, second, third, but it's always in the top 3. And so because it's such a important aspect of what we do, sometimes we like to get in the way of things as opposed to letting things unfold naturally. Be persistent, have patience, and use creativity. You have to know the situation specific. What is happening? You know, if there's problems financially, right now, I am seeing for the first time in probably, 15 years, things called VTBs. Does anybody know what a VTB stands for? When I first started in 1992, from 92 to probably 96, 97, probably 10 to 15% of my deals were VTB deals. Anybody know what that stands for? People are Googling it right now ferociously to be able to put it into the chat. I know you are. Even Matt is. Even Matt's going to do it. Stands for vendor take back mortgage. Vendor take back mortgage. So the seller becomes a bank. And maybe the seller has, 3.5 years left on a 5-year fixed term that they had, right? So that's the assuming side and vendor take back. So let me just do this assumption. So I'm seeing this as well. Let me go for VTB first. Seller becomes the lender. Maybe they own their property free and clear. Buyer is struggling to get qualified in conventional financing with good rates. So the seller becomes the bank and lends equity to this, equity in their house to the buyer. I'm seeing this. I saw it actually yesterday on the deal that I helped one of our agents with. These are very delicate to work with. If you ever stumble upon them, please reach out to a manager or one of us as brokers. We can help guide you through it because you're going to need a lawyer and a mortgage broker to help facilitate that as well. But vendor take back, that's using creativity in a marketplace right now where maybe buyers are not able to source financing. The one I particularly worked on yesterday with our agent, our realtor, it was a 10-acre property up in the country, and it had well, septic, and propane heating. So lenders are they scrutinize those types of files a lot more than a traditional, subdivision style property. So all the buyers that have been coming to the property look at it, which is well-priced property, by the way, too. So it's not one of those that's egregiously overpriced. But then they go to their lender and they find the frontline conventional lenders are not touching it. Then they're going into the secondary market and the interest rates are just obscene, right? So now in this case, this creativity is, let's do a VTB. The other one I'm talking about is assumption. Assumption mortgage, I think it's my 3rd deal ever, and maybe my 9th deal, 15th, whatever. I did a bunch of them in my first 4 or 5 years. And that would be in the situation where you've secured a great mortgage, impeccable interest rate. And think of what interest rates were like just a year ago. You could get 5-year closed a year ago for like 2.8 to 3%, right? That was going to get you a closed fixed before the first moves of the Bank of Canada last year. But even before that, if you recall, people were securing 5-year closed below 2%. In fact, I saw a mortgage, a 10-year closed mortgage that came up, didn't last for a long time. It was a small window promotion. It was like 1.90. It was a 10-year close. So imagine if you have that type of mortgage right now, because a closed, 3-year is going to probably run you 5% plus, maybe closer to 6. In an assumption, if your mortgage has the ability to have an assumption to it, a buyer can come in, they have to qualify with the lender. They can assume that mortgage that you've had. Now, the seller that's allowing that assumption does not have their covenant released from that, meaning that they're still ultimately responsible for the payment. So if the new owner, this buyer, defaults, the bank can actually go back to the original person. There's a bit of a risk there. Yeah, and Matt's making some faces at me. There is a risk there. But it is an amazing marketing tool using creativity to put your listing. If the seller is, they just want out of the mortgage, maybe they're being relocated to the States, job promotion, something like that. And that's actually all the ones that I ever did were job promotions. That company called Nortel used to exist, and I sold up in Brampton. The head office was there. A lot of those assumptions I did were people being relocated to the Carolinas for Nortel. And so we had good rates and we did the assumption. It was very, very creative stuff to do. I bet you're going to see that coming along, particularly with those people that have great rates with maybe 3 years left or 3.5 or 4 years left on their mortgages. And what you do, there's a thing called an interest rate differential. Write that down. You can look it up. I'm not going to go into it, but interest rate differentials, because you're going to have to look at the delta difference between what the mortgage is that you're assuming and whatever you've got as a down payment yourself and whatever difference there is. So let's say there's a $50,000 difference. That $50,000 gets blended into the main payment, and that's called the interest rate differential. Okay. So I go off topic all the time, but who cares, right? Non-verbal cues. I'm not sitting down with you right now, but if I was, look, I'll pretend to sit down with you. If I was leaning in like that with Matt and we're negotiating, I'm probably pretty engaged. I'm like we're at war here. We're going to make this thing happen. I'm leaning back and I'm not even engaged. These are non-verbal cues. You want to really assess who you've got and who you're negotiating with. It might be one person, 2, 3, 4. So you got to scan the parties, and then you'll determine actually which party is most likely the lead. Maybe it's the wife in the scenario, or maybe it's the kids. Who knows? Very rarely is it us, the dads. We just kind of politely nod and say yes, yes, dear, yes, daughter and son. So, never take anything personal. As I said earlier, you may have realtors that like to get under your skin, cause you to get off of your plan, and may make comments. Now, I'm not talking about comments that are threatening comments or comments that are, let's call it racist, or those types of comments. I'm talking about don't you know your job? Don't you know how to negotiate? Those types of shots at your professional acuity type of thing. Never take that stuff personal. And here's something too. Whenever you hear a realtor say, if I'm negotiating with Matt and I say to Matt, well, you know what, Matt, I've been in this business for 31 years. Never get worried about that person saying I've been in the business for 31 years. Because my experience is most realtors that come to you and say that type of thing have 31 years of not knowing what they're doing. Truthfully, because if they have to lead with that as their biggest thing, I've been in the business for 31 years, that's a pretty shallow thing, right? So never take it personal. Past experiences, positive and negative ones. You're developing this data bank or database of experiences, and these become your stories. So when you are doing negotiations and having these conversations, these stories are going to be integrated and weaved into those negotiation experiences. Again, you got to get the time. You got to put time in to make that happen. And then the last one is willing to walk away. There's a term used in negotiation classes where you can get certificates. There's one called CNE. It's called Certified Negotiation Expert. And I think there's one called an MCNE, Master Certified Negotiation Expert. It's a 2 or 3 day program. There's others, right? So this is not exclusive, the only ones that do it. But in all the ones, the high level negotiations, they talk about this thing called BATNA. Has anybody heard of the term BATNA in the audience? No, not yet. Stands for Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreement. Means basically what is your walk away.
Amber says she learned it in the CNE course.
There you go. Well, yeah, awesome. I think actually the lady that teaches that course, we're bringing her back soon. Her name is Sue Cummings. We're bringing her into one of our signature live events coming forward. So her name is Sue Cummings. If you see that name on one of these signature live things that they do, log into it. It's she teaches. I know she was the certification coach for the CME and MC. But BATNA is the here's my red line. You know, we're not going beyond that because one, maybe I don't have the financial capability, capacity to go beyond that. But this is I'm maxed to the limit. So that's your walk away. That's what they call your BATNA. Okay, you can look that stuff up too. Here's a good thing about technology today on YouTube and other various platforms. You can do so much research and learn so much. There's trainers out there that teach this stuff. Just put in YouTube, BATNA negotiation, see what comes up. There might be some good stuff for you to learn from. Fundamentals. How to know and understand REBA 2002. All standard forms, listing and buyer representation forms. I already told you there's 90 plus ARIA forms. New ones, sorry. Take effect April 1. So for my audience here, you're the first to hear this through our brokerage. Dispense with what you've got stored on your systems now and make sure you do whatever updates that are going to be provided for the ARIA forms, because 90 plus of the, I guess what it's 400 or 500 forms, something like that. So 20 to 25% of all ARIA forms are being changed in 3 weeks. And if you're using the wrong forms, you're offside. RICO requires, there's bylaws for RICO and the boards. So depending upon what board you're on, say you're on TREB or you're on REB or any other boards, both of those are violations. In the boards, it's a professional standards violation. In a RICO, it's part of our code of ethics violation. You're going to get fined dollars for call it $500 to $1,000 per violation. Not good.
Will any of these forms be brand new or are they just updates?
Good question. And here's my probably not great answer. I don't know yet because they haven't showed us the actual changes. So I sat on a webinar yesterday, that ARIA hosted, and it seems as though some are very minor changes, so not substantial changes, but some have substantial changes, but they haven't shown us exactly what that looks like. I've been given this morning a website to visit to look at these new forms, and I haven't had a chance to do it because I was on another call, and here we are today. In fact, I'm going to probably have you, Matt, and Najee to dig into that for me today. But this is big, big stuff. I talked about the other big thing, the open process. So that is becoming live, open offer process. So even I was not aware that that was becoming effective April 1st. I didn't realize that until yesterday. This is where a seller and a brokerage, so both parties have to agree to this process, where the seller is going to be able to reveal the contents or substance of offers to the buyers that are putting offers in. Okay, so let me be clear about that. So if this is agreed to by the seller and the listing brokerage, you're not required to have to agree to that in your listing, so you can walk away. So you have to cooperate and agree with that. But you're able to reveal the substance
of an offer. Let me be very clear here as well.
That does not include the name of the buyer. So you're not saying that Matthew Aldred is the buyer and here's his phone number, here's his email address, and here's his Instagram handle and Facebook. No. You're not revealing the private details of the buyer, but you can reveal other substantial parts of the offer. What do you think other substantial parts of the offer are?
Closing date?
Great.
Say price already? Price.
Substantial part of the offer. What else? Starts with a C as well.
Well, that's required already. So the fees, like if there's any inducements or there's any clawbacks or there's any commission rebates being done, they have to be disclosed. That's always been part of the REBA requirements. That's not changing.
Even to the listing side? Like
Correct. If I'm listing, yes, yeah, absolutely. So if I'm the listing agent and I've got my own buyer and I'm reducing my fee, I have to disclose the percentage that's being reduced, right? So say the total commission of the listing is 5%, and I'm willing to rebate this buyer that I'm representing 1%. I have to communicate in writing to the other realtors. There's a 1% collateral agreement. That's the term that we use, collateral agreement. Now, if one of the other realtors brings an offer that has a commission reduction, we actually don't even have to accept that offer because that brokerage is interfering with our listing contract that we signed with the seller saying we're giving 5%. So they have to actually ask us and ask our permission, and the seller and us have to agree to that. So they can't use that as leverage.
But bonus deposits.
Sorry?
Bonuses, deposits.
Exactly. That's part of it. There's the other one with the C. It starts the C.
Your conditions.
Oh,
This is conditional on finance. This is conditional on building inspection. This is conditional on sale of purchase property. That has to be, that can be in this open offer process disclosed as a substantial component to it. So it's interesting. We haven't seen the forms for this either yet. This is not, so I'm speaking only what I heard yesterday. But there's a lawyer pointed out in the call yesterday, well, what happens in the event where buyers are involved in these open offer process situations, but they didn't know that when they went in. So what's their ability to back out? So they're working on a clause to be able to put into your agreement if you're representing a buyer, that the buyer would be able to rescind their offer in the event that the seller, after this has been submitted as an irrevocable offer, conveyed as an irrevocable offer, will be able to be rescinded, okay? There's a lot of complicated moving parts, folks, to what's going to be happening. And sadly, as I said, preparation, remember one of my other favorite quotes, Miguel de Cervantes, he who is prepared has the battle half fought. This is not very good preparation for what's happening in 3 weeks. So
essentially an escape clause for a firm offer?
No, it's a rescinding clause. So you rescind the offer. So, okay, when I'm on the buyer's side and you're the listing side and I send you my offer, right, by email or I hand deliver one, I've conveyed that offer. That belongs to you. That is your property now as a listing broker. I can't call you up and go, hey, Matt, now that there's 7 offers, when I sent it, there was only 3, but now there's 7. My buyer doesn't want to go forward. You know, don't present my offer. I can't ask you to do that because you own my offer. But in this open offer process, if I sent that, didn't know that's what you were doing, lawyers were saying we're going to build in a rescinding clause to say, you know, if you did not disclose that, I'm rescinding my offer if that's what you're doing, right? REBA 2002 is actually now called TRESA. Stands for the Trust and Real Estate Services Act. That is what we're seeing to be implemented on April 1st, one of the phases. This is going to materially affect negotiations in real estate in 3 weeks. Here's my 2 cents on it, though. I think this is just novelty.
I'll use the word novelty. You can check back with me in probably
A year's time to see whether or not I'm right. It may have initially some uptake. Some buyers really want to do this because they think this is the best way to go. But my guess is that as these experiences occur, the reality will set in that the system we currently have, with some flaws, like there's some transparency flaws for sure, and those are being corrected with this new release on April 1st. But I think the novelty of this open offer process, bidding process, will cause it to almost be non-existent, right? So fun times. There's always the constant of change in real estate. Never think that it never changes. All right, this is pretty simple. Who are you negotiating with in an offer? There's the seller, there's the buyer, of course. There's the other realtor, and there's yourself. I always find that it's you, yourself, that is the one that is the biggest obstacle in these negotiations. As I said before, remove yourself from any of the situation. Be calm, stoic, be patient, right? And be it's one of my favorite words, prepared. When the greatest chefs create their greatest cuisines, they prepared all of their ingredients beforehand. They just didn't walk in like Iron Chef and start putting stuff together. They've been prepared. You are preparing. The negotiation is why they're hiring you, the top three of all times. If you're not prepared to negotiate, you got to ask yourself why, and make sure that when you find out the reason why, that you fix it. Verbal negotiation. So these are three questions. Should you negotiate an offer, verbally negotiate an offer? That's a yes or no question, right? Are they legal and binding if they're verbal? That's again a yes or no. What law governs how we negotiate an APS, which I'll answer that on the next page. So, should you negotiate an offer verbally? Yes or no? Are they legal and binding if they're verbal? Actually, maybe I'll use this one. We'll give you an option, maybe. For those that are sitting on the fence, you can say maybe. Okay, so here's my opinion on this. Should you negotiate an offer verbally? Yes and no. It's up to how you want to negotiate. You are having a conversation on that.
probably a better word that we could use is could you?
Negotiate verbally. So we're having the conversation, you and I, Matthew. Matthew's a realtor, I'm a realtor. The important thing to know, though, when we're talking verbally negotiations, Matthew and myself, and the parties, the buyer and seller, that those are not issues that are going to be bound legally, right? So this is a hard no. They are not legally binding if they're verbal. You may have learned way back when, Maria, that verbal contracts are binding. And in some sectors of the economy, that is true, but not in ours. In ours, the verbal part is the journey towards getting to what you're going to put on paper, essentially. And as a realtor, if I was to say to Matthew, as the buyer's realtor, okay, Matthew, my buyer's going to accept, when you sign this back, you told me that your sign back is going to be $1.2 million. And I say to you, okay, Matt, I believe my buyer's going to accept that based upon my conversations with them. That does not establish a contract, because the two parties, the seller and the buyer, are the ones in the contract. They have to, on paper, agree to that. What you're going to see in the next slide is the actual law that governs our industry and why it's got to be in writing, which is right here. Statute of frauds and limitations. That is in common law legislation in the common law, basically, right? So statute of frauds provides that certain contracts must be in writing to be enforceable. And real estate happens to be one of those sectors. The reality is on our APSs, the two most important things on your APS are the price. Okay. When I say price, I'm not talking about, price in the marketing sense of the word price, but the price. Once Matt and I agreed to $1.2 million, that was Matthew's agreement in writing as the buyer to me as the seller to transfer title. Most realtors have no idea that these are the two components, the most important components in the agreement for transfer of title or deed. So the actual binding element of the agreement, and you may have heard the word seal before. That's not the aquatic mammal. The seal, you'll see the little red, or well, I said red. When I first started, we actually bought little red dots from Grand and Hoyt and put them on the contract. People signed through that. Now it's just a little black mark on the contract. That's a very important thing, like no question about it. But the actual real element of the contract is that Matthew is agreeing to pay $1.2 million in exchange for me as the seller transferring deed and title to Matthew for that. That's the two most important elements to any agreement purchase sale. That's why it's in the statute of fraud limitation. That's why it's got to be in writing. So anybody that says you verbally agree to that, we have a binding contract, is incorrect. It's got to be in writing because of those two elements. Any questions on that? It's a very high level. As I said, if you went through 96,000 realtors in Ontario, I bet you 80,000 would have no idea what you're talking about this. But it's critical to understanding what happens, and use this as part of your educating process with your sellers and your buyers. You're just going to elevate your knowledge with them. All right. Making the best offer. I always said to my buyers, make the best offer, the offer that the seller is afraid to turn down. This is the market to do it in right now. I don't know how much longer you got as a buyer, because my feeling right now is the market's warming up. I really get the sense in the last 2 weeks that things have kind of changed. The Bank of Canada's held rates. They held rates because they told us they were going to hold rates, and I think they have a lot to lose if they were to go back on what their guidance was back in January. So they held the rates, which is great. We have the United States, the Fed, Jerome Powell, going to make an announcement later this month. They might go and raise the rates significantly. In which case, in our next Bank of Canada announcement from Tiff Macklin, he may have to move a bit. But right now, there's a steady foundation to operate from. And I think buyers, from what I've been hearing and feeling, feel confidence in the market. And if you look at the pricing, we've found this nice plateau in pricing. And actually, at the end of February, we had a bit of a run up in values from month to month to month, not year over year. Those are bad comparisons to look at because they're still showing, anywhere between 16 and 25% depending on market of a year over year drop. Look to the months to months to month. We found stable bottom, and we've actually built on it in some marketplaces. And here's the other thing. In every buyer situation that I ever was negotiating, this was one of my dialogues. Put in your best offer so that when you wake up tomorrow, win or lose, you put the best offer forward. This is something you definitely are doing when you're in multiple offers, right? There's 5 offers on the table, 10 offers, whatever. Matt, as my buyer, all I can advise you at this stage is to put in the best offer and have no regrets. What does that mean? Is that when you go home tonight and you put your head on your pillow and you wake up tomorrow knowing you did your absolute best to acquire that property. And in one case, or the positive, yes, it was successful, or on the other side, no, it was not. But have no regrets. A very powerful dialogue to use with buyers. And I think you may have in a month or two, a resurgence where you're having that dialogue conversations. If the market turns and heats up again, you're going to be talking to your buyers using that dialogue. Maybe not so much right today still. I think you got a couple of weeks, maybe. We've got the March break coming on. We've got an Easter. I always find that the Easter long weekend, until that happens, there's this pent up demand. And then when we pass through Easter, it's almost like being at a horse race and you see these stallions in the gates, and they're all aggressive. They want to run, and then the bell rings and the gates open and these things come flying out. I always find that after Easter Day long weekend, the market flies out. And so because we've been pent up for 10 months, 11 months, you might be using that dialogue quite a bit. Just my guess. Could be wrong. What are the critical elements to your offer? These are just some standard stuff you would have learned. So we're not spending a lot of time. Deposit conditions, irrevocable time, closing dates, terms. But the most important element is we've talked about a price all day long. Okay. Next slide. Deposit. What does that show? I'm just reminding you of what you learned already in class with Aria or Humber. It shows your good faith. Do not tie up much of the buyer's funds should the deal fall through or not become firm is probably the better term. I want to point out the three elements, though, of deposit. This goes unnoticed or overlooked by most realtors. There's three ways you can pay a deposit, and it's part of your negotiation strategy. In all of the offer programs, and which ones do we have here, Matt? We have like the offer program systems.
For preparing offers.
Yes. Yeah.
Web forms.
Web forms. Okay.
We used to use Easy Offer, not anymore.
Okay.
We now have SkySlope forms.
SkySlope. Okay.
That just got put up onto Trev, actually.
Onto Trev, right?
Yeah.
So there's the two, web forms and SkySlope offers. The default for the deposit is this one. It's upon acceptance. Let me be very clear, crystal clear with everybody, because this confuses a lot of people. When you read what that says on that line for upon acceptance, it means the deposit has to be delivered within 24 hours of acceptance. It does not mean 24 hours or business days, right? So if you're doing an offer on Saturday and your confirmation of acceptance is, let's say, 8 p.m. on Saturday, that does not mean you have till 7:59 p.m. on Monday to deliver your deposit, because of course Sunday is a holiday, right? It's a non-banking day. No, people get messed up all the time. It's 24 hours. 24 hours, whether it's Christmas Day, whether it's Canada Day, it doesn't matter, folks. It's 24 hours. So be very, very careful. We have some of our buyers that are using co-ops or using it's for banking or for other, lending banking variables where they cannot produce a bank draft for you in 24 hours. So if you have a buyer like that, or you have a buyer that has their funds tied up in investments, right? They're going to be withdrawing it out of a TFSA. You got to be mindful of where that source is coming from, because if you go upon acceptance, that clock starts ticking the moment the confirmation of acceptance has been signed by either the buyer or seller. Your 24-hour clock starts there, not 24 hours after it starts as a business day, okay? Or a holiday. 24 hours is 24 hours. So what do I advise? I advise most people to do as otherwise described, because before I go there, herewith is old school real estate, how I started in real estate. Herewith is, I've come to the negotiating table as the buyer's realtor with my offer, and I've come with my bank draft. Here you go, Matt. Herewith, you've got my offer, and you've actually got my bank draft. That's old school real estate. We literally did not start doing upon acceptance to the tail end of my career. It was always, I brought a check. Good faith, remember? Buyer is seriously wanting to buy the property. Doesn't happen too often. and unless you're in multiple offer situations. This time last year, January, February, I was advising bring checks, show the listing agent. There's 10 other offers, 20 other offers. We have an offer. My buyer went to the bank, paid their $10 for a bank draft. Here it is. You don't have to worry about chasing me, okay? As otherwise described, though, is the best way to do any of your deposit structures. Why? Because you can put into the contract and schedules what that looks like. You can put in, buyer agrees to provide deposit within 72 hours of confirmation of acceptance. Simple, right? Buys you a couple extra days. Or what I really encourage you to do, buyer agrees to provide listing brokerage, $2,000 within 72 hours of acceptance of this offer. Buyer further agrees to provide, let's just say, $23,000 upon removal of all conditions. So you can structure the way your deposit's delivered to the listing brokerage. They got to agree to it, but we're working for a buyer on this side. Why not put the best offer forward on deposit for our buyer? Because the challenge right now, folks, is we have listing brokerages and sellers refusing to sign mutual releases when we're not fulfilling our conditions. So it's holding ransom and hostage our buyer's deposit. And does anybody know that only 3 ways a brokerage can release the deposit money that's held in trust? Because that money is going into a trust account, right? Your deposit for your buyer is going into a trust account. A listing brokerage only has 3 ways legally to remove funds out of a deposit trust account. Anybody know what those 3 are? Trick question.
I'm assuming one of them is mutual release, right?
That's number 2. What's the number 1? What everyone wants to accomplish, actually.
Firm deal. No. Reba says closing or court order.
Who said that?
Farida.
Closed with, I'll say closed with lawyer direction. Those are the only 3 ways that a brokerage is
Able to remove trust fund money, okay? So if you're in a situation where you do the upon acceptance, or you do a herewith, or you do the, as otherwise described, you're giving all of the money up front, right, deposit, and should you not be able to remove the conditions, then you have to go and seek a mutual release, which has to be agreed to by both parties. A brokerage is not able to withhold releasing that so long as the parties to the transaction have agreed. So seller agrees, buyer agrees. We have, unfortunately, situations on a weekly basis where sellers are saying, no, I don't think you negotiated in good faith. I don't think you really tried to satisfy your building inspection or your financing, what have you, and I'm not signing the mutual release.
Imagine having 30,000, 50, 100
plus thousand sitting in somebody's trust account. You're paralyzed. You can't do anything.
Well, as I highly recommend,
You're working for your buyer. Do some kind of as otherwise described where you can ladder or structure your deposits to the brokerage depending upon fulfillment of say conditions, right? Just a suggestion that I have. These are for single offer numbers. Again, you choose what you want to do. In multiple offers, 5% seems to be the rule of thumb that I'm seeing for people that are putting offers in. 5% of the purchase price as your deposit, okay? Any questions on how that all kind of works? I threw some legal stuff with you, I know, but it's very important. I would say I have about 4 or 5 or 6 conversations a week about this. So I'm happy to answer any questions now. If not, we'll move on. But it's something that when you're working with a buyer, think very carefully about going with as otherwise described. We do have a question.
Amber wants to know how sellers typically react to that type of deposit structure, or otherwise described as you mentioned.
Yeah, some are adamantly opposed to it, and the ones that are adamantly opposed to it maybe haven't had it communicated properly of why that is the case, because we have funds that are tied up and we can't get to them right now, but we're going to be in the process of doing that. We don't want to be breaching the terms of the agreement by doing upon acceptance and telling you we're going to bring 30. So we'd like to get that money out, get our conditions satisfied, and it's a win-win for everybody, right? So some sellers are like, no, I want the whole thing. Again, that's a negotiation thing. How good are you going to be at convincing the other party that this is the structure you want to set? Because our buyer has to have that information so that when they're calling us on our side, when we're the buyer side, and we're not getting the deposits released on the other side, that's a hard conversation we're having with our buyers.
Would you ever recommend to a seller to not release funds when a mutual release is requested by a buyer?
Not unless you have those three initials behind your name.
You're a lawyer and you're called to the bar and you have legal insurance. Maybe you want to give that kind of advice to a seller not to release. I would be very careful about doing that. Outsource to a lawyer. Let a lawyer tell them that. It's very dangerous for us as realtors to do that.
Okay. What will be a benefit? What would be a benefit to not releasing it and trying to, I'm assuming, force the deal through?
Once the agreement terms that you've negotiated elapse, so if you've got a condition on inspection or you condition on finance or a status report, and you have a specific time, because in our contracts, I believe, I'm going on memory here,
It's either 24 or 26 on the
standard agreement for selling, it's 24.
It's the time is of the essence statement.
If anybody has an actual standard agreement purchase sale that they have access to, just double verify that. It's either 24 or 26. Anything that's in the agreement that has a time of the essence requirement. So I have to fulfill this condition on or before, March 11th at 7 p.m. The moment we go past that, if we haven't fulfilled it, that becomes null and void according to the contract, right? So what was the question again?
Like, what would be the advantage of trying to force this deal through by withholding the return of the deposit?
So you're not going to force any deal through once you've elapsed the condition. So buyer's not going to fulfill. Let's just say it's a status report, because that's when I've got on the go right now. It's a live actual case from last night and carried on to this morning. Status report was flawed. We're on the buying side. Lots of discrepancies in the status report and errors on the listing agreement. So our buyer, who's new to the country, first purchase, through their lawyer's advice, they're not going to fulfill the status report. So we sent the mutual release. The other side is now contemplating whether they want to sign the mutual release. The condition is actually, it's dead an hour and a half ago, 10:25, half an hour before I started here, that condition expired. So there's no forcing the deal through on the seller side because it's null and void. Now the argument becomes, are they going to sign the mutual release? They have no claim to it, but you can't force them to sign it, right? If they decide not to, sadly, I erased it, the only other recourse we have is the buyer has to go to court, send a claim to get their funds back. And so long as everything was in good faith, and in our case it was, we actually tried to satisfy the condition. The lawyer for our buyers said, we got all these discrepancies. I advise against it. We'll get our deposit back. How long is that going to take? 6 months, 10 months, 12 months. We don't know, right? So you're being held hostage. That deposit is being held ransom.
So I'm assuming the question was leading to, what is the strategy behind the purpose of the seller for doing that in the first place?
It's a strong arm tactic to say to a buyer, sign that waiver or fulfillment clause and make this a firm and binding agreement. That's possibly the reason why. If we've already exceeded past the condition period, it's null and void. Maybe it's some bitterness that the seller has, and the seller is going to make you as the buyer feel some pain, which is sad, but it happens. It happens all the time. That's why structure it as the otherwise described. And if you only put $1,000 or $2,000, that's not going to hold your hands. You're not going to be tied to go buy something else. But if you put 30 grand down, 50 grand down, you're now stuck. Like you're not moving forward until you get your money back, right? That's why I used to use that clause when I was selling tail end of my career.
That was it for questions.
Okay. Best payment, certified or draft, of course, is the best way to do it because that's real money. It's actually a draft now. They call it. They don't call it certified check anymore. Protects the realtors and helps facilitate quick return of deposit should the deal not be firmed up, so long as the seller agrees to sign the mutual release. Because here's the reality: if you do not send a draft, which is like real cash, right? That's what that represents. If you send just a regular check, although it may look and appear like it's cleared all the banking systems, we see it on our online banking. Yeah, Mike's check to Matt's company cleared, blah blah blah. It takes between 15 and 21 days to truthfully clear the system. I didn't know that until about 15 years ago when I became a broker. I thought once you saw it, it's cleared. But it actually can take up to 15 to 21 days, which means that if you're sending a non-bank draft, you're just sending a regular check, the other brokerage may wait the 15 to 21 days until they've, with 100% certainty, ascertained that that money clears, okay? So you may be waiting, it costs you 10 bucks, 12 bucks to get a bank draft, money well spent, okay? Conditions. As a realtor on the listing side, I used to hate when I would get an offer come in from buyer's realtor that had conditions all over the place, right? So to me, if you want to make a listing realtor really happy, cluster all your conditions in the agreement person sale one by one, right? Because that's the tough stuff. It frustrates a listing realtor when he sees a condition on financing, then a couple statements, then another condition, couple statements, another. No, put it all together, right? Make this thing flow easily. In multiple offers, we saw that last year. People go in firm. Be very careful about that. Make sure that you have, I'm going to say it's Form 144 sign, which is the one that, I could be wrong on the number, but it's the one where the buyer acknowledges in writing with you on that form that they understand the consequences of going into the offer without conditions. Just double check. It's either Form 144, Matt, or it could even be 127, I forget. Matt will put it in the chat for you. Next one, irrevocable times. What's the purpose in meeting? Again, we're doing some schooling stuff here, but it's good to refresh this. An irrevocable time, the purpose is that your offer is valid until that time. Once 1 minute strikes past that clock, it's no longer valid, according to clause 24 or 26 in the agreement, where it's time of the essence. What length of time should it be? Well, make sure that parties are able to tend to the offer. Putting somebody on really short notice with an irrevocable time is it's a strategy some people use, but I was always of the opinion, give people the opportunity to be able to deal, without all that stress and anxiety with an irrevocable. 4 or 5 hours is typical for me. Is there any requirement? There's no requirement. Nobody has to reply. There's actually 3 options. You can accept the agreement, you can sign it back, or you can do nothing. What happens if either seller or buyer accepts after the irrevocable time period? Well, I think you contradict clause 24, and I think you've accepted an offer that has already expired. And by doing that, some lawyers would call it you're trying to do the resurrection of the transaction that's already died. It potentially has legal ramifications. So, I have seen it. Some lawyers accept it, but God forbid you get a situation where one lawyer says, no, this is not a binding agreement because you violated clause 24, time of the essence. So if you're after the irrevocable time, right, be very careful about it. Now you can sign back. Signbacks are fine. You change the irrevocable, right? That's not what I'm talking about. But everything is died, right? And then you go and accept the agreement without sending it back as a counter offer, okay? Next one, registering the offer. This is Bill 55. This has been around for probably 10, 12 years now. I don't know how they teach this in the classes at RIA or Humber, but there's 5 methods that you can convey and communicate how you're registering your offer. You actually can use the offer. This is the best. Form 801, you can send a text, email, or fax So it'd be like me as the buyer's realtor sending a text or email or fax to Matt. Hey, Matt, it's Mike Kennelly over Real Estate Signature. I have an offer that I'm registering, signed offer on ABC 123 Street for you. Can you please confirm receipt and what time is the offer conveyance or presentation, right? So you can do that by these three additional methods. These two here are the better ones. Of course, as I said earlier, the offer is the best. Form 801, still to this day, 12 years later, lots of confusion. This is not a mandatory. It's not. You will still see occasionally realtors and brokerages thinking that's a mandatory form to use. It is not. If you look at the top of the form, the key word is it's evidence. This is to be used as evidence to substantiate the amount of offers you have in play. That's what this is all about. Bill 55 is to make sure that all the buyers have transparency in the amount of offers that they're competing with. That's what the purpose of that is. RICO has unilateral jurisdiction to reach out to a brokerage and have the brokerage confirm in writing how many offers were on there. So let's say the buyer was told there's 8 offers registered on the property. Maybe there was only really 3. Buyer's suspicious. Buyer's brokerage makes a complaint to RICO. RICO will very quickly give you 3 or 5 days of listing brokerage to substantiate your claim of 8 by one of these 5 methods. And that's really, for 801, it's just one of the methods, right? It's the evidence to support, yeah, I have one of those 8s, okay? Where are we here, Matt? There we go. I would go to the portal. There is a couple of videos there dealing specifically with this that myself and Michael Stothers put together, probably the last one was a year ago, Matt, right? A year or 2 ago. We did a 45-minute, 1-hour session on what this looks like dealing with multiple offers. It's standalone. Chris was the moderator, and Michael and I did the presentation on it. So it's chock block full of good information. Nothing's changed from those presentations, so go ahead and watch them. Deliver an offer, the best is in person. I still put fax up there because we still all have fax machines. I always make a joke. I don't even know what our fax machine number is at this company because I've not ever used it. So for those of you that use the fax machine or know the fax number, you get the gold star today, right? Email by courier. I would say the most common though would be, would you agree with this, Matt, by email through DocuSign or Authentisign, those types of amazingly time-saving technologies. DocuSign today is taking it on the chin in the stock market, by the way. I don't know if anybody trades stock market, but it was down pre-market, I think about 15% or something like that. Their guidance going forward was not very good. But hey, listen, if I was selling real estate now, having DocuSign and Authentisign would be just amazing, you know. So we used to have to drive there, you know. Best strategy, of course, is in person. Just before the presentation, I loved being face to face with people. Once you get over that fear, that first quote, you know, never negotiate a fear, but never fear to negotiate. Once you get over the fear of going face to face with somebody, it's the best way to do it. And you start to build relationships with other realtors, and your reputation starts to get out there in the marketplace. Like, well, I'm doing a deal with this guy, Matt, over at Signature. Do you know? Oh yeah, Matt's a great guy. You're going to get better as a realtor, and you're going to get better outcomes for your buyers if you do it face to face. And if you're on the selling side, better outcomes for your seller, 100%. By fax, never send it by fax. I'm going to go very quickly over this. You can get a fax machine jam, run out of paper, other people around and see your offers. Staff maybe not even checking fax machines, just don't use fax, okay? Presenting your offer yourself allows for face-to-face interaction with the seller. As I said before, you can interact with facilitate successful presentation, build your reputation, puts you in a better position to interpret the situation and adapt to enhance your own negotiating position, right? And your own skill set. Humanizes the experience for all parties. Again, top 3 of any survey I've ever seen in real estate. negotiating is always in the top 3. If all you're doing is sending it by DocuSign or by email, that's not negotiations. That's not what your buyer's expecting, and that's not what your seller's expecting. Get in the trenches. Get your feet dirty and wet. Counteroffer, what is it? It's a counteroffer, right? So we're going back and forth, and Matt sent an offer to me. We didn't like it. We signed, made changes. I countered that offer back. I changed the irrevocable from buyer now seller back to you. And it's the tennis game. We're going back and forth. I never, and I said tennis. I always had that imagery in my head. We're playing tennis as well. I never let the ball stay in my court as a negotiator. I always topped it back, unless there was a baton in place, a red light. I always try to put it back in Matt's court. I wanted the deal to, if it was going to die, I wanted it to be on Matt's shoulders, not mine. Okay. Yeah, we talked about the 3 or 4 options. Seller's offers, you can try to allow the buyer to present their offer to their seller. Yeah, it is, right? So I had no problem with the buyers coming in and presenting their offer to me. And I wanted them to talk about who their buyer is. Again, it's the humanizing experience, right? Not to mention, if they don't do a lot of negotiations, they may reveal sometimes confidential private information in that face-to-face because they're so nervous. I'd like to see if I can pick up on that, like to see their body language. So yeah, I was always about let that buyer present their offer, right? Some realtors though, face-to-face, they'll tell you, just give me your offer. We'll review it. You sit there quietly. We'll review it. If we have any questions, we'll ask you. And then they may even ask you to leave the room. You know, in a snowstorm, go stand out in the front lawn in the snowstorm. That's happened to me before.
What should you do to prepare the seller before the presentation? This is number 1. Remain calm. Not say anything. If we're doing a face-to-face offer presentation and it's scheduled for 8 p.m. tonight, I'm showing up at least at 7:30 p.m. half an hour before, maybe 45 minutes before, because I'm giving my sellers a reminder lesson and education on what we're doing today. When I listed the house, I would tell them that, but they will forget. When we're going to do this, you know, I want you to remain calm, do not say anything. They'll have forgotten that when it comes offer time, because it's so exciting, right? Like they get, you know, their personality changes. They don't do it every day. We do it every day, every week. So I go in, make sure, listen, Matt, we don't know what it is. Yeah, I have no idea what this offer is going to look like. It could be a ridiculous lowball offer. Remain calm. Let's stay, you know, zip it. Don't say anything. Let me be the communicator for you. If you see a price that's like amazing for you, remain calm. Don't say anything. Don't look at me and go, Mike, let's accept that. Why? Because they might have more money that they might want to give you. So again, you're managing their emotions when that happens. They don't do it every day, like I said. So when they see stuff like that, they can get very angry, or they can get very happy. You don't want them to show their poker face for that, okay? You are the one that is in charge of the listing and negotiation for that listing. Multiple offers, best strategy for when working with multiple offers. I said to you before, let's have the no regrets strategy. Like when you wake up tomorrow, let's have no regrets as the buyer. As the seller, you want to make sure that everybody has the fair opportunity to present their offers and to improve their offers. And you have to set a strategy, or you should set a strategy. If you're on the seller side, you have a couple options. You could say, we're going to accept the best offer out of the 10 that are coming in. So tell your buyer that they don't have a second chance. They got to put their best offer in because we're going with that best offer. Or you can say, well, look, we're doing multiple rounds, so your buyers will be able to improve. Set the standards, set the rules of the game before the actual game begins. Can a buyer sign more than one offer on the property? It's kind of a trick question. It is a yes. Why? Because maybe the buyer is not available to do a DocuSign or whatever. And right now, when I'm signing the offer with Matt, there's no other offer. So I have my offer where I'm not in competition. And I have offer number 2 if there's now multiple offers where there's 3, 4, 5 offers, right? And so, yes, you could sign 2. What you do? Never sign 2 offers on 2 separate properties and submit them unless you can afford financially to buy the 2. I've seen that happen where, well, you know, if you don't accept it, I got another offer over there and, you know, we're just going to go over there if you don't accept mine. Well, if they accept this one and they accepted the other one, you just bought 2 houses. Not a good thing. I'm not sure if I have a slide on this one too. Never, 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 ever, never sign back 2 offers when you're the listing realtor. So I've received, you know, 2 offers in. Do not sign back both offers to the buyers, to the 2 separate buyers, because you've potentially just sold the house twice and it's only one house. I have seen this, believe it or not, happens once a year for sure, where I've got an encounter that I'm dealing with where a realtor has signed back 2 offers. Thankfully, it hasn't been on our side in a long time. It's usually another brokerage that's done it. And of course, the excuse is on their side, well, whoever accepts first, the confirmation of acceptance is the one that wins. No, that's not how that works. You've sold the house twice and it gets messy. And each of the cases that I've dealt with, it's cost the listing brokerage and the seller actual real money to have us walk away. So our buyers actually financially benefited from that. We won't go Matt.
Sorry, try now.
No, I'm going through. Oh, there's a question for.
It's working back and forth on mine, but it's not.
Oh, uh-oh.
We just lost internet.
Oh.
Yeah, we just lost internet. Seconds. Talk again real quick.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so we're back, but we lost the. Wait 1 second here. I'll make this work. 1 second.
Must be a snowstorm.
Hit back a couple times on your controller. 1 second. Sorry, I don't know. If we stop real quick, stop. Yeah, sorry. Share screen. Presentation. Spotlight. Can you guys just make, oh yeah, can you hear us? I don't think I heard that.
A little bit of feedback. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Yes, no? I'm on this, I'm moving here now, so I guess we got. Yeah.
Test. Yeah, yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Oh, the slide.
Sorry, we just we lost. So try it out for the slides. Yeah.
Okay, that's where we were. Right?
Recording's still good. Yeah, sorry, that was just a brief internet loss there on our end.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. I think there was a question when I turned around. I saw somebody that asked a question.
There was.
Don't know what it was. So.
What is the point if a buyer signs more than one offer for a property?
So what I was describing there was you're not able to connect with your buyer on a property, and potentially this property will go into multiple offers, right? So, but right now there is no other offers on the table. So you create offer number 1 with your buyer where there's no competition. So here's my offer to the seller, nobody else is competing. And your backup offer is, should there be, you know, a second, third, fourth offer appear, this is your other offer, which is let's just call it maybe a higher priced offer, maybe with no conditions included in that. So that's the purpose of what I was describing or trying to describe in that respect. It's not going far, Matt.
Try again. I was typing.
Okay. Presenting offers when representing seller side. So maybe, we went in and listed this property 30 days ago, 60 days ago. Markets change. So always when you're doing a offer, update your CMA to the property because new information, new sales may have occurred, which might affect or change your actual original opinion. Have available the showing list and the feedback that you've received on the showing, if people are going to be willing to provide the feedback. For your seller, give them that comprehensive net sheet. I talked about that with you, I think in the second week, with that net sheet where you just deduct all your expenses. Have a list of counter offer points prepared if you're going to encounter a very sophisticated negotiator. So if somebody was to say, well, Mike, based upon this sale, 10 streets over, that sold for 1.1 and you want 1.2, yours is only worth 1.1. Be ready for that because 10 streets over is a completely different neighborhood, perhaps. Perhaps that was on a busy street on the corner. Perhaps there's a traffic light there or a fire hydrant. Like you have to be ready for your counterpoints. You have to know your marketplace and know what is going to be included and not included. Discover any buyer's motivations or weaknesses. Perhaps the buyer is in desperate need of purchasing. They've just sold their property and now they have to move in. That's why I always like to have face-to-face to see whether or not that other realtor may, accidentally disclose something pertinent and material to that. God gave us one mouth and 2 ears. You're always in negotiation, listening twice as much as you're speaking. It's not a sign of you're a better negotiator by you talking more. The better negotiator sign is the person that's listening twice as much as they're speaking, okay? Preparation for lowball offers. This is where the marketplace has been at for the last, 8-9 months. We're seeing lowball offers. Nothing wrong with lowball offers. It means somebody's interested, but maybe that's not at our price. So educate, display with data to our sellers what that looks like for having an over listed property. The expired listings, I said to you earlier in the second class, they're important parts of the equation. A lot of realtors overlook using expireds. I used expireds to my advantage. Seller refuses to make repairs to the house, simple repairs. Not talking about doing a wholesale renovation, but simple repairs. When a buyer walks through that property and sees, a paint job that's 5-6 years old, in their mind they over exaggerate and over financially estimate the cost to do that paint job. So do those types of repairs. If you're afraid to have that conversation with the seller, as I said in the other class, have a stager have that conversation for you for them. That way you're not personally, affecting the relationship. Backup offer, what's a backup offer? What advantages do you think of having one? Are there any potential drawbacks? Never send 2 offers on 2 properties if both are accepted and you've sold the home twice, which I said before. So backup offer would be, I have an offer right now on Matt's. This is the one my buyer really wants, but there's option one. So this is option 1A, but there is option 1B, right? This is the scenario we're not sending offer to 1A and 1B at the same time, but we're having a backup offer in case we reach our BATNA where I'm not going any further. And it would be, Matt, thanks for helping out working so diligently on this, but we've reached our limit. We can't go any further. We do have a backup opportunity that we're going to explore. I'll let you know how that works. Thanks again for working with me. Now Matt's like, whoa, what I'm going to lose the fish that I've got on the line here in my buyer to potentially some other listing. In this type of marketplace, Matt's probably going to ramp up his game, go back to his seller, and potentially come back with what we're looking for. So it's just a technique to use called the backup offer. As I said, never send 2 offers on 2 properties unless you can afford them, right? Then do what you want to do. Because if both are accepted, you've sold both homes twice. So that's signing 2 offers back or going and putting 2 offers out in the marketplace. My first week as a manager, January 2007, the week of the 16th. Never forget it. It was my first week. I just completed it on a Saturday, 11 o'clock. I get a phone call from a realtor in the office. I hadn't even met all the realtors yet at that office. And the question the realtor said, hey, Mike, I haven't met you yet. hear great things. Got a quick question for you. I think I know the answer, right? But just bouncing it off you. Been in the business for 15 years. I'm like, okay, what's the question? Well, I had multiple offers last night on my listing, and so my sellers signed back both buyers' offers. And just want to clarify that I'm right. I've done this many times before. The first offer to get accepted is the offer that's going to win, right? No. I thought I was being pranked or punked, I guess is the term. It was serious. It was real. Our realtor actually did that and had done it multiple times, but had never actually had both accepted. In this case, it looked like both really wanted the property. And so I was telling our realtor how dangerous this now became. And I said, if any one of those realtors asks you or calls you back and says, you think there's any wiggle room here, or do you think there's any opportunity, with the seller, do this, do that, and getting a sign back from that buyer. So if there's anybody that does that, one of those two, maybe you want to encourage them to sign back that offer, because we'll be in hot water. You'll be in hot water having sold to it. Thankfully, one did sign back, and it was, and the other did not accept. We accepted the sign back. We did not have to go to court on that one, which would have been messy. Overcoming objections. Oh, okay. These are two closing techniques. I think I indicate I was going to teach you. So ridiculous close, the technique. So Matt's going to help here. This one's called the reduce to the ridiculous. I learned this one from Floyd Whitman. This is in a negotiation situation where we've stalled out on a price. And so what did we say we're going to use today?
I think it was 20,000, right?
20,000. So, I don't have.
Hit that little button on the bottom left. No, right. You should be okay.
20,000. 20,000 has become our stall and our gap between what the seller's wanting and what the buyer's willing to pay. So there's $20,000 in difference. So using this technique to reduce it, ridiculous looks like this. So Matt is my buyer. Matt, so we're stuck on $20,000. How long are you planning on staying here and living here?
10 years.
10 years. So 10 years. So what can you do right away, Matt, to help us in the room out with 10 years and we know $20,000?
Divide that 20,000 by 10 years.
Right. Easy math. 2,000 a year. What can we do to reduce it again even further? So we've taken $2,000. They're going to live there for 10. We've reduced it already. It's not $20,000. It's $2,000 per year. It's a lot easier number to chew on than $20,000. Well, let's bring that number even down further. So we have a couple of ways we can do that, right? We could do, we could divide that number by 365, right? Or we can divide that number by 12.
Divided by 12, it's 166.
Oh, sorry. I screwed that up. There you go.
That's it per month.
Okay.
Or $5.47 a day.
So there's reduced to ridiculous. You've taken $20,000. We've established you're going to be there for 10 years. What does $20,000 really look like, Matt? Because this is your dream home. We've looked at 20, 30 properties. We've put offers in on a few. But this one here, you've told me this one checks off every box. So $20,000, if we really distill that down, it works to $2,000 a year because you're here for 10 years, $166 a month, or believe it or not, it's a Starbucks coffee a day, or a Starbucks and a half a day, I guess, right?
More like half a Starbucks.
Or a half a Starbucks. It's a great technique to put it into perspective to that buyer that's found their dream home, that they're going to be there for 10 years. Make that number bigger. What does that look like if you're there for 15 years? What does 15 years look like, Matt?
1,333 a year.
Okay. What's the 12? Divide that by 12. And
$100,000. $3.65 a day.
$365 a day, Matt. And you got your dream house.
$3.65 a day.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Right. For $3.65, you're saying no to your absolute dream house that you see and envision raising your family and growing your in this neighborhood. Is that what you want to stop on? So that's reducing to ridiculous. You figure out the dialogues and the kind of conversation you want to have with that. But the strategy is to put it down to a number that it's ridiculous not to say yes to. That's why they call the close the reduced to ridiculous. Everybody like that kind of close, and we're going to try that kind of close. That's the magical thing. Will anybody actually give it a shot when they stall out at a gap price? So far, nobody says yes. Here's my advice. If you're contemplating doing it, don't do it for the first time with a client. Practice this yourself, practice with a colleague so that you know how that works. You're going from establishing how many years you're going to be there, what does it look like by month, so you divide it by 12, and then you divide it by 365 days. So you're reducing to the ridiculous. The last close here is called the casino close. This is like you're imagining, hey Matt, we're at the casino. This one works best on the listing side. This one here works best on the buyer, so I'm giving you one really cool one on the buyer side, and this one works best on the seller side. You can work both interchangeably, so I could do the reduce the ridiculous on the seller side, just reverse and say, all right, Matt, you're going to sell this house today, but you're holding it up for $3.65, whatever, right? But it does work better for the buyers. Casino works better on the seller. How does it look? Well, Matt's my seller. Johnny and Mary have sent an offer to us, and we're listed at $1.2 million. That's and we want $1.2 million. We want full price. And Matt has an offer on the table from John and Mary that's $1,199,000. We're $1,000 away. We're $1,995,000. We're $5,000. We're so darn close. Okay. The casino close works like this for Matt. Matt, let's imagine we're at the local casino. We're either down at Casino Niagara or up at Casino Round. And we're sitting there at the table. And right in front of you right now, your stack of chips are $1,195,000. That's the stack of chips you're sitting in front of you. Because that's your offer right now. That is what you, by signing right there on the dotted line, by agreeing to that paperwork, by autographing that agreement, you've got $1,195,000 of chips. Make sense? You understand? Okay. What we're looking at doing, or what you're looking at doing right now, Matt, is at the casino, pushing all in that $1,195,000 worth of chips. That's money in your bank right now to win $5,000. So you're leveraging $1,195,000 to make $5,000 extra. Is that a bet you would make at Casino-Rama or at Niagara Casino? If it is, okay, I get it. But if that's not a bet you would make, you wouldn't push all that money in on the table for an extra $5,000. Why are you doing that? To sell your house? Because here's the reality. The moment you push that bet back in and you sign that back out for $5,000, and that buyer's agents told us they're walking, this is their best offer. Are you willing to risk all of those chips, that money in the bank, to sell your house for a net gain of $5,000? That's your casino close. With dialogue like that, you can create your own little, motifs for it. You can use. I used to bring poker chips with me sometimes. I put them on the table, right? You do what you want to do, build it out. But they're great visual ways for people to get off the actual focus of selling the house to another scenario where they would never make that bet in a casino. Does that all make sense to everybody? Who's going to try that one? Again, this comes with years of practice to figure that stuff out. Like, don't go and try this for the first time tonight when you're doing a listing, an offer presentation on your listing. Like, it's not going to work. You got to practice. Any questions on either of those two? All right. What you need to work on, I think it's my last slide. This might be my last actual comments in this whole program. Find yourself a partner role play with, pick out current listings, and then also prepare a mock offer that you can present to your partner. Call your phone, leave a voicemail. Recording yourself in the dialogues you've just learned today, right? So if you want to hear what it sounds like from your perspective, do that. Visually record yourself. These devices we have now have HD quality. Record yourself. See what you look like when you're presenting and doing these dialogues, because you have to become a master at this stuff. Again, every consumer and every survey I've ever read about real estate, they want you to be an amazing negotiator, always in the top 3. And I think that is my last slide. It is. So I wanted to yet again thank everybody for sticking with me and for your attention, and hopefully you've learned a few things through the process of this 5 weeks. I never want to be an ultimate transformer of what you're doing. I'm always loving for you guys to pick up a few things that you can add to what you're currently doing. And if that's what we've accomplished this 5 weeks, I'm very happy. And I'll be even happier when you potentially walk across the stage getting your award from Royal LePage Signature, because maybe something you learned here with me today, this week, last 5 weeks. So thank you very much. Oh, we have a question?
No, just a comment back from the beginning. I left for the end. Free, but just wanted to say, thank you. He's been in the business for 13 years, but he's learned a great deal from this. Thank you for sharing your experiences.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, like I said, I think in the first class, the likelihood of me going back into sales is slim and none. So I figured when I wrote this program, when I started becoming a broker, that I would share with you kind of the inside nuts and bolts for everything that I was doing, right? So when you see realtors that are competing with you right now, they're never sharing with you exactly what they're doing. This is exactly what I did. What's missing from what I teach here is the social media content and the website stuff, because I really was not in a marketplace where that had evolved to a place where I was using it. So that part's missing. I really highly recommend people take a look at opportunities and learning in that world, because it is important to do that part of it. And ChatGPT, guys, will be something I think that will help your business, not going to destroy your business, but it's going to help your business in writing ads and writing dialogues and things like that, okay?
Amber says thank you, and she loves it when you go off topic. I don't know if that's a good thing to say, because we don't want to go off topic more.
No, I'm happy to do that. I have just so much experience now in 31 years. Like, it's amazing where a lot of technical issues that people are terrified to deal with, to me now is just routine stuff. So thank you, Amber. It validates me doing the off-topic stuff and off the content, because I think based upon what I deal with every day, a lot of realtors are operating without the knowledge to navigate these road mines and landmines that we have. So that's why I kind of go off on these tangents. So appreciate that feedback, Amber, so much.
And we'll be running this again in May. So
Correct.
If anyone wants to retake it, you're more than welcome.
100%. Yeah.
If you actually want to come and sit in and bombard Mike with questions and make him go off topic more, come join us in class.
So before COVID, I'd have like 30 people in this room. And these classes would be 3 or 4 hours long, because people would just be stopping me every 5 minutes, and I would go off on a tangent and give you my opinion on a case, a legal case, a RICO thing, or whatever. So I'm happy to have you in the room. Today it's only me and Matt, because there's a big snowstorm. But yeah, May we'll be doing one, and I think we're doing something in October too, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you'll see me occasionally on Signature Live. So I actually might do something for the company for this stuff for Tressa. But I'm trying actually to get somebody from Maria to do it. May not be able to pull off. So ultimately, it'll most likely be me. But again, thanks everybody. If you are traveling today, please take it carefully, easy. It is really bad out here in the West. Not sure what it's like in the East, but stay safe. Have a great March break for those of you that have kids at home. I have a couple, so I'll be taking a couple days off next week, but have a great March break. And really, just make this business what you really want. Let's go back to the very first exercise we did. Why are you in the business? What are your whys? And that's going to get you motivated, get you out of bed, and make you, reach those goals that you set for yourself. So again, thank you so kindly. I appreciate all the feedback, good, bad, and ugly. I take it all. And Matt, let's thank Matt, our
chat with Matt kind of guy. He is, and actually we had Najee help out one time too. So these guys are fundamental to us delivering this product to you. And so thanks to Matt for what he does as well. Okay. Signing off, guys. Take care. Have a great weekend. All right. Bye.